$1,800 a month, coming out of 7 tiny animals that fit on a shelf. And the whole starter kit for every single one runs under $100. Snails, bugs, worms, little birds you raise in a corner. That is the number. And by the end, you will know exactly which 7 and exactly where the money comes from. Here is the part almost nobody tells you, and it is the whole edge of this list. Most of these animals are not classified the way you think. That quail is a game bird, not poultry, which walks it straight past a stack of livestock rules. Those snails are the everyday hitchhiker, not the banned species the Federal Lacey Act goes after. One of these is legally the same category as a garden earthworm and ships to almost every state with 0 permit. The classification is the loophole, and I hand you the exact category for each one as we go. Now, there is a system underneath all of this. The reason these 7 cost almost nothing to feed, where they quietly clean up after each other and turn each other's garbage into more money. That is the single most valuable thing in this video, and I am parking it at the very end because it only lands once you have met all 7 animals first. So, hold me to it. And one promise before we start, because it is what separates this from every other list. Every price I give you is a real listing you can pull up on your phone right now from a real seller, not a made-up you-can-earn number. If I say 1,000 Dubia nymphs go for $75, that is a live retail page today. So let us start the countdown. Number 7, the cheapest warm-up on the whole list, and it is an animal you have probably killed by accident without knowing people pay for it. Number 7, pond and bladder snails. These are the little snails that hitchhike into your tank on a plant and then breed like there is no tomorrow. And that is the point. Picture one plastic tub on a laundry shelf, a scoop of snails, and every month a fresh batch of live feeders you bag up for cash. You have probably scraped these off your glass and flushed them, thinking they were a problem. Flip that right now, because the fish-eating crowd hunts for exactly what you were throwing away, and you literally cannot fail to make more of them. Here are the real numbers. Honest monthly income is $5 to $30, and cost to keep them is basically nothing because they eat algae and scraps and clean the tub themselves. Startup is $15 to $35 total. A small container, a little water, and a starter scoop of snails you can often get free out of someone else's tank. Time to your first dollar is fast because a scoop is already breeding the week you get it. And with margin like this, the sale is almost all profit. Now, where you actually sell them. Your buyers are puffer keepers and loach keepers, the people whose fish eat snails and burn through them. On price, plain brown ones are often just given away. They go for about $6.99 per 10 snails, so under $1 each, and colored morphs pull a little more. The floor is free giveaways to build a name. The middle is that 7 per 10 rate on Red/Aquaswap and local Facebook aquarium groups, and your highest margin channel is a standing arrangement with one regular puffer keeper who reorders. Local fish stores take them too, but pay almost nothing because they get them free. So treat stores as overflow, and when one buyer saturates, find the next tank owner one town over. Your one legal edge to no cold. Maine bans virtually all freshwater invertebrates, including every snail, because they can carry parasites, so that is a permit-only state you skip, and Hawaii blocks them as well. Everywhere else, you are clear without a federal permit, because these are the common hitchhiker snail, not the banned apple snail the Lacey Act targets. And knowing that difference lets you ship while others panic. The mistake is treating this like a cash crop and quitting. It is your training animal, and that is a role, not a weakness. It teaches you to ship live animals through the mail, and it cuts feed and cleanup costs on everything else you raise, quietly boosting profit on all 6 still coming. Master shipping here for pennies, then step up. Because the next one is invisible to almost everyone, a speck of white dust that an entire hobby cannot get enough of. Number 6. Number 6. Springtails. These are tiny white specks that live in soil and explode into the millions in a little tub of charcoal and water. Picture a stack of deli cups on a closet shelf, each one worth around $10. One culture turning into a dozen cultures in a couple of months while you barely lift a finger. You were thinking nobody would pay for a cup of tiny bugs nobody has heard of, and that is exactly why this works. Because outside the reptile and terrarium hobby, the market looks empty. But inside it, every bioactive setup needs them and buys by the cup on repeat. Real numbers, in order. Honest monthly income is $20 to $70 once you are established and shipping. Feed and material cost is tiny, charcoal and some deli cups. Startup is $25 to $45, a few deli cups, charcoal or substrate, and a starter culture. Time to your first dollar is 4 to 8 weeks because the culture must boom before you can split it, and that patience is the whole moat. Margin matters because shipping eats a real chunk, so you win on volume and repeat buyers. On where to sell? Your buyer pool is dart frog and terrarium hobbyists, plus the sellers who resell to them. On the latter, a 4-ounce culture sells for $8 to $15, an 8-ounce for $12 to $20, and Josh's Frogs retails an 8-ounce for around $7.99, so that is the ceiling you undercut. Your floor is a single cup to a first-timer on r/bioactive or an Etsy or eBay live culture listing. Your middle is steady cup sales to those forums, and your highest margin channel is bulk. Isopod and reptile sellers bundle a springtail culture into nearly every order they ship, so they buy in quantity to resell. And when one is stocked, find the next reptile shop that ships bioactive orders. Your legal edge is that this one is clean. Springtails are a native soil organism, so there is no federal permit to keep or sell them, a genuine advantage. The only two things to mind are USPS Publication 52, which governs how you mail live invertebrates, and Hawaii's plant quarantine rules, which block live cultures coming in. That is about as light as a live animal gets. The mistake is trying to sell in week 1 and quitting when nothing moves, so let it build those first 4 to 8 weeks and it prints for months. This is not the headline earner alone. It is a force multiplier because it pairs with the next animal and the two together are worth more than either apart. And that next one is the bug you will actually recognize, the classic, the whole terrarium world quietly turned into a color morph gold rush. Number 5. Number 5. Red wigglers. These are composting worms, the ones that eat your kitchen scraps and turn them into castings, which is the gardener's word for worm poop. And that stuff is gold to people who grow plants. Picture one bin under your sink, fed on the garbage you are already throwing out, handing you 2 income streams at once, the live worms themselves and the castings they leave behind. This feels like a chore, not a business. Flip it, because every scrap you were about to bin is now free feed, and 2 products come out the other end that gardeners and anglers both pay cash for. Real numbers, in order. Honest monthly income is $10 to $50 across both streams once the bin is mature. Feed cost is 0 because it runs on kitchen garbage. Startup is $30 to $60, a tub or basic bin, some bedding, and a starter half-pound of worms. Time to your first dollar is slower, 3 to 6 months for a half-pound to build into something harvestable, and that slowness keeps casual people out, which protects your margin. On where to sell, your buyer pool splits clean in 2. Live worms sell for $30 to $50 a pound, and castings sell for $2 to $4 a pound in small retail bags. Your floor and middle are local gardeners on Facebook Marketplace, the tomato and houseplant people who buy both, and your highest margin move is castings in small few-dollar retail bags rather than bulk, because bulk castings crater in price. Your second buyer pool is local bait shops and anglers who buy live worms by the cup and reorder all season. So when your local gardeners are covered, roll into the next town's marketplace and the next bait shop down the highway. Your legal edge is a big one. Worms ship freely across the entire continental U.S. with no federal permit needed because they are a beneficial composting organism, not a pest, and that clean status is a real selling point. The one line to respect: the moment you put plant growth or fertilizer claims on a castings label at any real scale, you can trip your state's fertilizer labeling and registration rules, so keep labeling truthful and plain. Do not promise miracle growth, and you stay clear. Hawaii blocks live worms coming in, as usual. The classic mistake is overfeeding, because too much food heats the bin and crashes the colony, and beginners do this constantly. So feed light and it runs for years. This is your steady dual stream on free garbage, the dependable roll in the stack that never dies on you. That is 4 animals in, so let us add it up. Snails, springtails, worms, stacked and producing, those 4 streams together already run somewhere from $55 to $210 a month, off shelves, on garbage, with almost no labor. Hold that, because we are now climbing into the real earners, and each one from here pays more than the last. And the next is the animal in every pet store tub, the one whose cost to you drops to literal pennies once you breed your own. Number 4. Number 4. Mealworms. The classic feeder, the squirmy tan grubs you've seen in pet store tubs. Picture a stack of plastic trays in a closet, silent, needing nothing. And every month you scoop out live worms that backyard chicken people and reptile keepers buy on repeat because their animals eat constantly. Once you have your own colony breeding, your cost per worm drops to almost nothing. This looks too boring to be worth it, but flip that, because boring and hands-off is exactly what makes it run itself while you sleep, and the demand never turns off. Real numbers, in order. Honest monthly income is $20 to $60 once the colony is producing. Feed cost is tiny, wheat bran and a few carrots. Startup is $40 to $70, a stack of plastic trays, wheat bran for bedding, and a starter batch of worms and beetles. Time to your first dollar is 3 to 4 months for the beetle to harvest cycle to ramp, and that ramp is the moat that thins the competition. Margin is the whole game because it is a low-value bulk product, so your edge is that once you breed your own, the cost to you drops to pennies a pound while your buyers still pay retail. On where to sell, your buyer pool is local backyard chicken and reptile keepers through Facebook groups and Craigslist who reorder regularly because their animals eat live feeders. On price, they retail around $8 to $15 per thousand, roughly $3 to $7 a pound to your buyer. Your floor is undercutting the big online sellers slightly. Your middle is a steady local reorder list, and your highest margin channel is fresh local worms by the cup at a premium, because people pay more for fresh and local than for a shipped box. Pet and feed stores also buy live feeders at wholesale, so that is your bulk overflow. And when your local list is full, expand to the next county's Facebook groups. Your legal edge here is genuinely good news. Tenebrion lolitor, the mealworm, is on the USDA APHS exception list. which means it moves interstate across the whole contiguous U.S. with no PPQ 526 permit required, as long as your stock is clean, and the same goes for superworms. That exemption is a real advantage because you can ship where others cannot. The one hard stop is Hawaii, which requires a permit and an arrival inspection. So on the mainland, you are clear. The mistake is expecting fast money and quitting during that 3 to 4 month ramp. So treat the ramp as the barrier protecting you and push through. This is a reliable shelf stream with almost no labor. And the next one flips everything you just learned about permits on its head, because it looks like a harmless cleanup bug, but it is the one animal here the USDA actually watches. Number 3. Number 3. Isopods. These are land crustaceans, little armored bugs, the roly-polies and pill bugs you flipped over rocks to find as a kid. Picture a few shoe boxes of substrate on a shelf, and inside them, the fancy ones, the dairy cows and the porcellio and the armadillidium morphs, that terrarium and bioactive people pay real money for, with the rare color lines paying a lot more. You think these are just yard bugs nobody would buy? Break that, because this quiet cleanup bug turned into a genuine hobby market, where a common culture moves for $20 to $30, and the rare morphs climb from there. Real numbers in order. Honest monthly income is $30 to $90 once you have culture splitting. Feed and material cost is low, leaf litter, bark, and cheap substrate. Startup is $50 to $90, a few bins, the right substrate, leaf litter, and a starter culture of 10 to 15. Time to your first dollar is 4 to 8 months for a culture to grow big enough to split. And that patience is the moat, because most people will not wait, and that keeps the market from flooding. On where to sell, your buyer pool is direct hobbyists plus the cash crowd at shows. On the latter, common ones go for $1 to $3 each, or about $20 to $30 per 10 to 15 count culture. And the morphs, the special color lines, sell for a good bit more. Your floor is common cultures to first-timers on r/isopods and Facebook bioactive groups and Etsy. Your middle is a steady stream of those cultures, and your highest margin channel is local reptile expos and shows, where you sell cultures for cash on the table with no shipping and no fees eating your take. The common cleanup market can flood when everyone sells the same species, so as you grow, move up into rarer morphs and find the next expo one state over. Now your legal edge, and this is the sharpest on the list, so lock it in, because it is the exact opposite of the mealworm situation. Unlike mealworms, isopods are not on that blanket exception list. USDA APHS technically requires a PPQ 526 permit to move many isopod species interstate. It covers around 30 pest species, the seller's permit covers the buyer, and a USDA pamphlet is supposed to ship inside the order. Most hobby sellers quietly ignore this, but it exists, and knowing it before you ship across state lines is exactly the edge that keeps you out of trouble when others get burned. Hawaii blocks them too. The mistake is starting with the $50 rare lines you saw online, because those are advanced animals. So start with the common cultures at $20 to $30, learn the rare morphs as you go, and your prices climb with your skill. Start common, grow into rare. And the next one is the only bird on the list, the fastest livestock animal alive, laying eggs in a time frame that sounds impossible. Number 2. Number 2. Coturnix quail. The one bird on this list and the fastest livestock animal there is. Picture a small cage in a corner or on a balcony, and a chick that hatches and starts laying eggs in about 8 weeks, which is unheard of. They are tiny, quiet enough for a lot of backyards, and you sell to 2 completely different buyers at once. People who want eggs to eat, and people who want your hatching eggs to start their own birds. You assume you need land or a farm. Break that, because this is a wire cage in a corner, and that 8-week egg cycle means you are collecting sellable eggs before most projects even get off the ground. Real numbers in order. Honest monthly income for a beginner with a small covey is $20 to $70. Feed cost is modest, a bag of game bird crumble. Startup is $60 to $100, the top of our under $100 range, for a small cage, a feeder and waterer, and a starter covey of birds or a batch of hatching eggs. Time to your first dollar is that famous 8 weeks from chick to laying, the fastest on the entire list. And speed is your moat because you are earning while slower animals are still building. On where to sell, your buyer pool splits in two. Eating eggs sell for $2 to $10 a dozen, and hatching eggs sell for about $1 each for standard birds, climbing to $2 to $5 each for Celadon or premium lines. Your floor is eating eggs to local customers on Facebook and Craigslist who pay cash and reorder because eggs run out. Your middle is farmers market and feed store traffic, and your highest margin channel is hatching eggs from premium Celadon lines where a small covey pulls real money per dozen from beginners buying in to start their own birds. One local market absorbs only so many dozens a week, so when your regulars are covered, add the next farmer's market and the next feed store. Now your legal edge, and it has a few moving parts, so know them cold. Quail are federally classified as game birds, not poultry, which dodges a lot of livestock and zoning rules, and that classification is a genuine advantage. But it does not override your city ordinance, your HOA, or your lease, and some of those ban all birds outright. So a 2-minute check there is the single thing that protects everything you build. Selling eggs or meat can trigger your state's cottage food or poultry processing rules, and shipping eggs or live birds across state lines generally requires NPIP certification, though selling in-state and in-person is usually exempt, which is the easy lane you start in. The mistake is buying birds before checking your lease, so check that one rule first and the rest is smooth. Start small, sell eggs, grow from there. And the final animal, number 1, is the one whose name makes people flinch, the one buyers literally chase you for, and the one that can get you fined or arrested in a single state if you ignore one rule. Number 1. Number 1. Dubia roaches. I know, the word roach makes people flinch, but stay with me because this is number 1 for a reason. Picture a couple of bins with egg crate flats, quiet in a warm closet, and reptile keepers messaging you every few weeks because they are chronically, desperately short. Dubia are the premium feeder roach for reptiles. They do not climb smooth walls, they do not fly, they do not infest your house, and pet stores run out of them constantly. The wall is the ick, the fear of an infestation. Break it now, because these physically cannot climb out or breed in your home, and that single fact is why this is the most in-demand animal on the entire list and also among the cheapest to start. Real numbers in order. Honest monthly income is $30 to $90 once the colony is producing, and it climbs highest of all 7 over time. Feed cost is tiny, cheap bran and vegetable scraps. Startup is $30 to $60, a couple of bins, egg crate flats for them to hide in, a heat source, and a starter colony, one of the lowest startups on the whole list and part of why it wins. Time to your first dollar is 4 to 6 months for the colony to build breeding critical mass, and that is the moat because it thins the field and then the demand is relentless. On where to sell, your buyer pool is the hungriest on the list. On price, they go for about $20 to $40 per thousand wholesale to stores, or around $75 retail per thousand for small nymphs, which is roughly 6 to 15 cents each. Your floor is small nymph batches to individual reptile keepers on Facebook reptile groups and r/reptiles who reorder every few weeks because their animals eat constantly. Your middle is a steady list of those keepers. And your highest margin channel is a standing order with a local pet or reptile store, because they are chronically out of stock and will lock in a recurring buy rather than keep running dry. These buyers come back on their own, the rarest thing in this whole game. And when one store is supplied, the next one over is almost certainly out of stock too. Now the legal edge, and this is the most serious on the entire list, so I am going to be very clear, because knowing it keeps you safe while it wrecks people who do not. Dubia roaches are flat out illegal in Florida. They are classified as a conditional species under Florida Administrative Code 5B57, and there is no pet permit that exists to make it legal. Penalties include confiscation, fines of $500 and up, and there are documented criminal cases. In 2011, a man in Florida was arrested for importing 500 dubia and hit with felony charges. Reputable sellers flat out refuse to ship to Florida and to Hawaii. So if you live in Florida, this animal is off your list entirely. Skip to one of the other 6. Outside Florida, it is legal and unregulated, and that clarity is your advantage. The mistake is chasing a garage-scale 4-figure dream on day 1, so build your colony through that 4 to 6 month ramp and then let the buyers chase you. Outside Florida, this is the strongest recurring stream on the list because the buyers come back to you on their own, and that is the perfect note to bring all 7 together. So how do all 7 stack into that $1,800 total without breaking your budget or your back? This is the system I parked at the very top, and here it is. The trick is the waste loop and the build order. Every one of these eats cheap, and several of them feed each other. Your springtails and isopods clean up after your other cultures. Your mealworms and dubia turn cheap bran and vegetable scraps into protein. Your worms turn kitchen garbage into castings you sell. Nothing gets thrown away, which is how you keep your total monthly cost near nothing while 7 streams run at once. Build them in this order. Start with the cheapest, lowest risk warm-ups, the pond snails and springtails, to learn live shipping for almost no money. Then add red wigglers and mealworms, your steady, low-labor shelf streams. Then move up to isopods and dubia, your 2 best recurring earners once you know what you are doing. And put quail last if your local rules allow birds at all, because it has the most setup and the most regulation. Here is the one honest line to hold on to, said once and plainly. Each animal alone is tens of dollars a month, and that $1,800 is the fully stacked total, all 7 built out and given the months they need to mature, not what one fresh colony pays you next month. That is not a catch. It is the map. And it is exactly why the waste loop matters, because it lets you run all 7 at almost no cost until they are all producing at once. A free starter guide in the description lays out this exact build order and the legal category for every animal. So there is your countdown. From the pond snails I would treat as a training exercise to the dubia roaches I would start tomorrow if I were beginning today. If you do one thing this week, do this. Start with springtails or isopods, both under $200 all in, both selling into a hobby that is hungry and rebuying, and both teaching you the live shipping skill that unlocks every other animal on this list. That is your single first move. Then tell me the one thing I actually need to point you at the right animal. Drop a comment with the space you are working with, a shelf, a closet, a spare room, a balcony, a backyard. Because the animal that fits a laundry shelf is not the one that fits a backyard. And I read these. Tell me your space, and I will tell you which of these 7 to start first and where your nearest buyers are hiding. And grab that free one-page cheat sheet in the description, the build order and the legal category for all 7 on a single page, so you can start this week instead of researching it for a month. Next video, I take the Dubia Roach, the number 1 here, and go deep on the real first-year colony build, the real numbers, and the mistakes that kill a beginner's first build.